What is up, Revivalists? How's it going? Simon here from CD Revival once again, and today I'm going to do a ranking of my studio albums by one of my favourite bands of all time. That band is Faith No More. Superb band, originally started in 1979, I think they formed, originally called Faith No Man, changed their name, like a few different lineup changes to begin with, and then over the years. So yeah, I'm going to review and rank all of their albums from the first to the last. 7 studio albums in total. Before we get onto the ranking, if you just like and subscribe and click the notification bell so you get to know about any future updates and future videos. Without further ado, we'll get on with the ranking. So my number 7, which is the only CD of theirs that I don't own, is their first one, which was entitled We Care A Lot. A lot of people forget about this, even the band themselves on their greatest hits, they don't even count this as their first album, but it so is. Came out in 1985, produced by Matt Wallace, and I do like it. It's obviously had their original singer Chuck Mosley doing the vocals, the original version of the track We Care A Lot, which is obviously a famous one of theirs. Production on this one's a little bit ropier than everything else they did. Obviously first album, so a little bit of budgetary constraints there, but in total it's an enjoyable album. It's a bit of its time, so it's, yeah, got that real sort of early 80s kind of sound, synth sounds, etc., but pretty funky. Some good tracks on there, obviously the title track, which they did again obviously on their next album, but we'll get to that in a bit. The Jungle's a really good track. As the Worm Turns is a really good track. I think they've done that live. I think that might be on their Live at Brixton CD actually. So they do. That's a really good, the original version of that. Arabian Disco, another really good one. So yeah, not an album to be completely cast aside and not very good, because it is a decent album. But all of their albums are pretty good. So something's got to be at number 7, and yeah, I think justifiably their first album from 1985 is my number 7. So we get on to the my number 6, which is this one, Invictus from 2015. They split up in, I think, 2000 and no, not even that, I think 1998, after their album of the year. So they had quite a hiatus, didn't do any music at all. Then they got back together in 2009, doing some live shows, and eventually they put out this one in 2015. I really like the artwork on it. I don't know what's going on, but it's creepy and also cool. So this is their 7th album, and produced by Billy Gold, but also I think mixed by Matt Wallace, their sort of long-time producer. Also produced their first album. Unconquered Sun is what Sol Invictus actually means in Latin, and it's not a bad album, but honestly I would call this disappointing in one word. So listenable, enjoyable, but after the long layoff, and then you're looking forward to a new Faith No More album, and yeah, honestly it was a little bit, for me, disappointing. And I still find myself listening to it thinking, oh, I'll listen to it again and I'll enjoy it more, and then it's like, well, I do know all the songs really well, I have listened to it a lot of times, and it's just not up to scratch with their other sort of classic albums. I say by no means bad, but just a little bit sort of by the numbers, kind of, they've dialed it in a little bit, I think. Sunny Side Up is quite a decent track. Cone of Shame I do really like, that's one of the best ones on here, and Matador is a really good one as well, really excellent track. But the rest of them are a little bit kind of Faith No More by numbers, things like Superhero, Motherfucker, Rise of the Fall. They're all kind of Separation Anxiety, they're all just sort of, they're okay, they're not bad tracks, but they're just a little bit uninspiring for me. They don't really do a lot for me. So yeah, they're the best ones on there, the ones that I've mentioned, and that's really all I've got to say about it. But yeah, not awful, but just disappointing. It could have been, I think, a lot better. So Number 6, Sol Invictus from 2015. Not bad, but not their best by a long shot. My number 5 is their second album, Introduce Yourself, from 1987. So this is their second album. Matt Wallace once again produced this one. This was the final album they did with Chuck Mosley on vocals. And yeah, an enjoyable album, to be honest with you. Chuck's vocals aren't as good as Mike's, obviously, but it's a different style of vocals altogether. Some really good stuff on here though. Anne's Song is an excellent track. The title track, Introduce Yourself, even though short, is still a fun track. Chinese Arithmetic I really like. They redid We Care a Lot with updated lyrics and just a better production, better sound on this one. R&R's a good one. Crab Song starts off like quite moody and then goes into a real rocking tune. Blood's good. Just a lot to like on this album. You can't, listen along to it. I can't and not enjoy it. So even though no Mike Patton, still well worth a listen. Really fun album. Funky. It's got the same sort of bass sound all the way through it, and it's not a lot of variation like they did on a lot of their later albums, but still very enjoyable. And I do, if it's listen to this or Sol Invictus, which one do I enjoy more? Definitely enjoy listening to this more. So that's my number 5, Introduce Yourself from 1987, their second album. Last one with Chuck Mosley, and obviously he left after that, and we all know what happened then. My number 4, I honestly swapped 3 and 4 over, and then swapped them again, and then swapped them again. Anyway, yeah, my number 4 is Album of the Year from 1997. It's their 6th album. A good album. This is a double disc edition. I do enjoy this quite a lot. This was their final album they did before they went on their very long hiatus. And yeah, a lot of good tracks on here. This one was produced by Roly Mossy Man and Billy Gold as well. But yeah, some good stuff. It's a lot of variation on there. John Hudson plays guitar on this one as well. And Strip Search is a really good track, quite subdued, quite sort of synth led until it gets like really heavy towards the end. Last Cup of Sorrow is a really good track. Mouth to Mouth I really enjoy. It's got a really Arabian feel to it. It's yeah, an interesting one. Ashes to Ashes was a single. It's really good, catchy tune. Helpless I really like as well. Path to Glory, some really good stuff on there. So yeah, quite varied. Not brilliant reviews on this one, to be honest with you, but I think they've been a bit unkind, because I think it is a really strong album. I say all of their original ones were, and this is no exception. So definitely check out Album of the Year. Say quite varied, some good heavy stuff on here, not as heavy as some of their other stuff, but yeah, quite a nice sounding album as well, really good. Say the single Ashes from Ashes, I've got that on CD as well from the album, and that's got the big kahuna on there. Mouth to Mouth from the album as well, and a remix of Ashes to Ashes, so that's pretty cool. My number 3, as I say, I was undecided about the 3 and 4, but I did decide to go for King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime as my number 3 album. Jim Martin, the guitarist, who'd been there with them from the start, he left at this point. He got a bit, yeah, I don't know, annoyed with the whole thing. And this one's a good album. It's probably one of their heaviest. I mean, there's some tracks that aren't super heavy on there, but it's largely quite guitar based. Not a lot of keyboards on this album. I think Roddy Bottum was having a few problems at the time. I think it was around the time that sort of Kurt Cobain had died, and he was a good friend of his, and of Courtney Love, obviously, he was a good friend of his as well. I think he had a few like drug problems as well, so it wasn't the best of times for him. So yeah, largely without keyboards this album, which does give it a very different sound to any of their other albums, to be honest with you, and I think it does miss them a bit. I think it would be a better album with a bit more texture on there in that way, but still really good album. Trey Sprance plays the guitar on this after Jim Martin had left. He was originally the guitarist for Mr. Bungle. and he toured, no, he didn't tour with them. Dean Mentor toured with them, but he didn't carry on for the next album either. So it was just, yeah, one of those things. I don't think he got on with Billy Gold too well, who knows. But yeah, really good album. And yeah, produced by Andy Wallace, this one. But yeah, standout tracks. Get Out's a really good fast-paced opener. Ricochet is a good one. Evidence is a slower paced sort of ballady one. You've got Gentle Art of Making Enemies, really heavy. Star AD, which is a sort of, yeah, it's a little bit different. Cuckoo for Caca, really heavy track. Caralho Voador is a really mellow one. Ugly in the Morning's like really heavy as well. Ends up with like Mike Patton just screaming, "Don't look at me, I'm ugly in the morning," at the, you know, like a deranged lunatic at the end. Dig in the Grave was the single. The first single. Take This Bottle was a sort of yeah, more of a ballad. The actual title track, King for a Day, is a superb, probably one of the best tracks on the album actually. Really good. What a Day is sort of a heavier one as well. And then he's got Last to Know and Just a Man. Nice finish actually with Just a Man, really like good sort of soaring chorus finish off the album. But yeah, I'd say a much more guitar led album. Does miss Roddy Bottum's influence I think on this one, but still I had to give it to this. There's quite a lot of tracks on there and quite a lot of variation, to be honest with you, but yeah, really cool album. King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, and that is from 1995, fifth album. I got the singles from that as well. Well, a couple of the singles, the Dig in the Grave ones, two separate ones. This one's got I Started a Joke and Greenfields on it, which are covers. And this one's got Ugly in the Morning, Cuckoo for Caca, and Absolute Zero, which is a track which was left off the album, but really good track. So they're both pretty cool. So now we're on to number two, probably their most famous album. And that is The Real Thing from 1989, their third album. This is the first album to feature Mike Patton. The album was pretty much written, well, it was all written and recorded actually when he joined the band. So all he had to do was literally come in and like write the vocals and sing them basically over the top, which I think he did in about 10 days or something. So the story goes, according to Matt Wallace, the producer. So he's done a good job there. Obviously he was in Mr. Bungle previously, so he literally just came in and just did it all. So not a lot of his influence other than the vocals and the lyrics on this one. So it was all pretty much written, and as a result it has a similar, you can see how it continues on from Introduce Yourself. So it has got that funky vibe, a lot of heavy tracks on here though, but yeah, a absolute banging album. I remember when, yeah, I first got this and it was, you know, just played over and over and over again. Just such a cool album. From out of nowhere, just straight out of the gate, it just, you know, blows your fucking head off. Epic, which is obviously the famous track. Fall Into Pieces is another catchy tune as well, with a real sort of elastic bass line on it. Then it goes into Surprise You're Dead, which is super heavy. Yeah, super heavy. Then you've got Zombie Eaters, which is a really cool one. Then you've got The Real Thing, the title track, which is probably one of my favourite tracks of theirs of all time. Just a long, starts off really like subtle and then just kicks in and it's just amazing. Underwater Love, really super catchy. Morning After, standard track, probably one of the weaker ones on it, to be honest with you, but still pretty good. Instrumental Woodpecker from Mars, which is crazy. And then on this one as well, it wasn't on the vinyl, but you got the cover of War Pigs, and then a sort of jazzy, loungy song, Edge of the World, which is really cool. Mike's vocals really good on here, but his vocals in their infancy, so he's not quite got the range. He's got quite a nasally sound on it, but still sounds really good, and it's just a top quality album, start to finish. Really cool. So yeah, that's The Real Thing from 1989. That's my second favourite Faith No More album. So it only leaves one as the number one, obviously, and that is Angel Dust from 1992. This is their fourth album. Just a masterpiece. probably one of my favourite, easily in my top 10 albums of all time. Largely a perfect album, I think. Matt Wallace once again produced like he did with The Real Thing. I think he's done 5 out of their 7 albums, to be honest with you. So, well, he did obviously like mix on the Sol Invictus one. But yeah, go through the tracks. Land of Sunshine, cool opening. It's, you know, kind of not too weird, but yeah, just sort of quite catchy. You can see where they're going with that. Caffeine's an amazing track. When the bass line kicks in sort of towards the end of it, and then it goes, it's just such a cool track, man. Midlife Crisis was a single, the first single, and that's pretty cool. Kind of standard Faith No More on that one, really, but still really good track. RV's a strange one. It's about like a dude lives in a trailer park or something like that. It's but yeah, really cool. Smaller and Smaller is quite heavy. A lot of synths over the background. Everything's Ruined is well catchy. Then you've got Malpractice, which is a super heavy track, like super heavy track. Kindergarten, a standard Faith No More track, pretty cool though. You got Be Aggressive with this sort of cheerleader aspect to it, quite funky. Small Victory, another really catchy one. Then you've got Crack Hitler, which has got its sort of 70s sort of scratchy guitar on it. Really do love that one, and with its, yeah, strange, I don't know, it's not even a chorus, but it's like whatever's going on there. Really good. Jizz Lobber, probably one of my favourites on the album. It's just super heavy, and then it goes into this church organ bit at the end, and if you've got that turned up loud, that just gives you goosebumps. It's like just amazing. And then Midnight Cowboy, which is a cover of the movie theme at the end. This one's also got the Lionel Richie cover Easy on there. I didn't originally have that, but they obviously, that was a big single for them, so they re-released it with Easy on there as well. But yeah, this one, it's a little bit, I mean, nowadays it seems quite tame, especially if you listen to some Mike Patton's other stuff, like his Mr. Bungle stuff, and especially like things like Fantomas as well, which I'll sort of show in my next CD collection, so I've got a few of theirs. And they're, you know, difficult to get into, but I remember this at the time was quite challenging. So now it seems fairly tame, but still it's you know, an absolutely amazing album, really, like, you know, as close to a perfect album as I think you'll get, really. So Angel Dust from 1992, superb album. You need to have this in your life, basically, if you've not already. A couple of singles from there, actually just the one. I've just got the Small Victory, that's the remix single version, remixed by Youth, so I think there's about four versions of it on there. Check that out. Got my glasses upside down, but that is fine. Yeah, four versions of that on there, so yeah, that's pretty cool as well. I've had that for years and years. And also, just to finish off, I've got the Who Cares a Lot Greatest Hits album, which is just, yeah, greatest hits. So it's got a second CD with some sort of rare tracks on there as well, so that's pretty cool. Benny Hill on the cover, but yeah, it's got all the, honestly, all the singles on there, original version of We Care a Lot, and just pretty much everything from their first sort of 5-6 albums. And say the CD2 is things like The World Is Yours, Hippie Jam Song, Highway Stars on there as well, and a few other bits and pieces, sort of B-sides and unreleased tracks. So yeah, that's that one there. So that was my Faith No More ranking. So big, massive fan of the band, and Mike Patton in general. I think he's done like so much diverse stuff. I probably will do like some sort of review of like the Mr. Bungle albums for sure. So I've got like all 4 of those, the original like official releases. Fantomas, I say, I'll mention in my next CD collection video. Things like Peeping Tom and Tomahawk as well. Dead Cross, which they've got a new album coming out. So yeah, he's done a lot of cool stuff. A lot of very difficult to, you know, pigeonhole and difficult to listen to quite a lot. But yeah, really good band. And yeah, that was that. So thanks very much if you got to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. So please again remember to like and subscribe, and I will catch you all for the next video. Cheers, take it easy.